I've been working on this for a while, many different variations. I made a community post about it, whether or not I should use the Fox's pair of knee pads or the Overlord backpack, because there's a certain way that I want to use this build, and if it turns out right, it's going to be insane. And I think this is the perfect test bed to see what it's going to do. I'm going to put myself in the most vulnerable situation ever, and we'll see the outcome. Alright, let's do this. Hopefully the Chunga comes this way. Shot in the back. Where you at, Chunga? There you go. There you go. Let's see what you got, baby. Let's go. Yeah, I'm gonna do a 1v1 with you one of these days.
I gotta be honest, the Ravenous has seen better days. It used to just dominate everything. Just look at this DZ footage from years ago. And after this rifle update, I just knew the Ravenous would get its glory back. But so many other rifles simply outshine it. Its fire rate can't compete. So I had to look at it another way. And boy, are you going to be shocked. Immortal, a build that's about raw power and is unyielding in the face of chaos, delivering calculated devastation while enduring what would break others. With a certain gear set and a certain skill, you become an immovable fortress, absorbing enemy fire with ease. Pair it with the Ravenous, and every carefully timed shot becomes a strategic explosion of damage and survival. Sure, other rifles may have the faster fire rate, but this build doesn't play by their rules. It dominates by outlasting, outthinking, and overwhelming the opposition. So I know you're eager to see this. Let's not waste any more time. We're starting right now. Okay, what's going on, y'all? I know it's been a while since I uploaded a build. My schedule has been a little bit busy lately, but I've been playing a game, and I want to show you something that is crazy. I'm talking about you become invincible in legendary content. You might as well forget about heroic. You saw the gameplay. I put myself in the most vulnerable position to see if I can last, and I was actually a little bit nervous because I didn't think I would. But it surprised me with how easily I was able to tank everything and dish out the damage. So I'm going to show you the build, and there are different ways you can use this. I'm sure you've seen variations of Foundry Bulwark, and I've never used Foundry Bulwark with the deflector shield. I've always wanted to make it a different way. I would implement improvised pieces so I can stack protection from elites, because with the deflector shield, NPCs, specifically elite, only aim at your head. So without protection from elites, it would be kind of useless, right? But with Foundry Bulwark, this is crazy. Look what it does, okay? It has something called makeshift repairs. Whenever you or your shield take damage, 25% of that amount is repaired to both over 10 seconds. This is increased to 35% if you're using a chest piece, which I am. It's called improved materials. Now, the 2 and 3 pieces are crazy on this too. 10% total armor, 1% armor regen, and 50% shield health. So you become an immovable tank that really pretty much can't be stopped. Now, usually with tank builds, with the exception of a few of them, like with the Catharsis tank build with the big horn, you're not really dealing damage. You're just absorbing damage, being a tank. But I think that's kind of boring. So with this build, I'm able to dish out tons of damage And I'm going to tell you about that in a second, because this half is pretty much for the tank and this half is for the damage that I'm dealing. You all know what the contractor's gloves do. It gives you LMG damage and weapon handling, but what I want it for is the 8% multiplicative damage to armor with critical hit damage on here. And then the Fox's Prayer knee pads with also rifle damage, but I want it for the 8% targets out of cover damage. Now I know you see the Ravenous here as my primary, but I alternate between this and another weapon, which I'm going to show you in a second. But the way that I'm able to deal damage is with the deflector shield. The beautiful thing about this is that you don't need to have skill tiers in order to yield the maximum damage bonus that this dishes out, because you get a tier based on either armor cores or skill tiers. So you get the full 60% deflector shield damage for having 1.9 mil armor. The specialization I'm using is Technician. Again, okay, first of all, this deals more damage to drones, robotics, and skill proxies. And most importantly, it has something called the Artificer Hive. It's the exclusive hive for the Technician specialization. This autonomously heals your shield. And usually this has charges, a certain amount that eventually run out when you throw it on the ground. But if you have this on your back, the charges are infinite. It never goes away. So these work in tandem. Makeshift repairs and the Artificer Hive. This repairs your shield. This repairs your armor. And with the armor regen, it's just crazy. You never go down. Now, the reason why I have the Ravenous is because I like to use this against elite enemies when I don't have anybody else shooting at me, specifically Chungas, because like I said, they aim straight at your head. So it's more beneficial unless you're on high ground to use this against Chungas. Because what this does is that this specifically targets those armor plates that those Chungas and those robotic dogs have, which is why it pierces their armor directly. You don't have to spend a lot of time shooting those enemies, because once you swap that shoulder, you're going to immediately see the damage affect their health right away. It's immediate, instant. This talent is called 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐿. When fired from the right shoulder, hits add offensive primers and defensive primers when fired from the left shoulder. Hits from one shoulder will detonate all of the opposite shoulder's primers when present. So when detonated, each offensive primer deals 100% weapon damage, which is 500% if you get 5, while each defensive primer grants 4% bonus armor and 10% amplified damage to armor plates. That's 50% amp damage, and those armor plates are referring to the ones from the Chungas and the robotic dogs. So this is why it pierces their armor and just destroys them immediately. Now, aside from the elites, all of the purple and red enemies, they deal the most damage, some of the most damage in these legendary missions. Surprisingly, right? So you can't let them shoot you from behind. And the code for these enemies is that they just aim for the chest area. Elite enemies aim directly at your head. So use the Ravenous against elite enemies and use the deflector shield against regular enemies. Now, like I said, there's another way you can use this. Here's another way where you have the Catharsis mask equipped, but you're not using the capacitor, okay? Any weapon will do, because what you want to use is the Mosquito for your primary weapon. Mosquito was buffed also, okay? This gives you 25% damage to armor, which was actually nerfed. In the PTS, it was 40% damage to armor. And I guess they said it was too much. Before, this weapon was obsolete. It was terrible. Nobody was using it, right? But now, when you hit an enemy, it applies stacks, and they're shared between players. And at 5 stacks, the enemy will forcefully target the last player to apply a stack for 5 seconds, which is what you want them to do. You want them to look at you and shoot you with a deflector shield so you can just deflect the bullets back. And this gives you 25% more damage to armor. These stacks deplete over 5 seconds. Activating the effect on an enemy will remove all stacks from other enemies. But that's fine, you're always going to be shooting this thing anyway. So with the 8% damage to armor, you get 33%, which is crazy. And you can really see the effects of this. The skill damage you deal with the deflector shield along with the weapon damage is crazy. And then you have Vicious Cycle. Like I said, you can use whatever style you want. I just prefer the other one. Vicious Cycle was buffed also because taking damage builds stacks up to 30. These stacks grant 1.5% weapon damage, and it used to be 1%. So instead of 30% weapon damage with Vicious Cycle, you're going to get 45. And this is just going to keep on receding, hence the name Vicious Cycle. With all the bullets that hit you at the same time, you see those heal clouds hit the ground and purge to give you 5% of your max armor. And because I have 1.8 mil, that's 90,000 armor that is going to give me over 10 seconds. And this is just going to keep repeating. but I haven't seen how much damage this deals in correlation with the other build style. I know that with this, you could definitely face tank chungas easily as well. You just have to take the mosquito off and use the Ravenous. But if you don't have the Ravenous, of course, the mosquito is easier to attain because the Ravenous is only attainable in the Foundry raid, right? But there's not much to this build, okay? Here's the one that I like. With the Ninja Bike backpack, you're able to get the 4-piece for the Foundry Bulwark. And it's okay because the backpack for Foundry Bulwark increases makeshift repair speed from 10 seconds to 5 seconds. And that's not really as important as the chest piece, which increases the actual repair to 35%. So you're good here. You have the survivability and you have the damage. There's nothing really to show you on the stats because it doesn't have much crit. But man, does this build hit hard. And it's not going to show the armor damage on here with the mosquito because that only applies after you utilize it when gaining those stacks. You see, because it only has 8% from the contractor's gloves, but that's cool. You'll get that damage. So this was a quick build breakdown. It doesn't require much to use this. You have a lot of protection so you can be really comfortable when going through a legendary mission. And I thought that it'd be a good build to show to the community. Let me know what you think about it down below in the comment section. What variations of tank builds are you using? And give me some suggestions on what kind of bighorn catharsis builds you think I should make. I know people are using Heartbreaker and others are using a mixture of high-end pieces, but there's a way that I'm going to do it that I don't think anybody has ever done. And I just had a light bulb moment when I thought of it. So let me know down in the comment section what you think about this. And I appreciate you stopping by to the end. Of course, I love when y'all subscribe and like my videos. You guys are legends. And I know my content has been few and far between. That's just because, I don't know, man. I want another game to come. I want there to be something else for the Division 2. And a lot of these builds are getting kind of redundant. So I'm trying to do the best I can to mix everything up to bring you guys the content that you want to play. I've been playing Stalker 2 and it's a great game. Stay tuned for some content with that. That game is crazy hard and immersive. And it's the perfect time to play something like that, being that they've partnered with Division 2. So that'll do it for this one, fam. I'll see you in the next one. Be right out.